Hi, I'm Karen. Welcome to Texas Farmstead Living. On today's video, I want to share with you something very near and dear to my heart. I want to share with you my favorite tips for finding the perfect homestead for your family. I feel like can give you a lot of insight on finding a homestead and the process that you need to go through to find one, because I did this myself 20 years ago. So get your pen and paper out and let's get started, because I want to share with you and help you find the perfect homestead for your family. The first tip I have for you is financial planning. It is the very most important thing because you will need money to buy your homestead. So it is very important that the first thing you do is you get out of debt. There's tools and resources that can help you. Dave Ramsey has a really good course and books, and I highly recommend his course. Secondly, under financial planning, is you need to save every penny that you can. That means, like I did not upgrade homes when I made more money. I did not get new vehicles unless it was absolutely necessary. I cooked all of our food from scratch, and I cut my family's hair. And we shopped garage sales, did everything we could because I knew my goal was to buy a homestead. So the third thing is, under financial planning, is you need to know, assess your capital. You need to understand if you did get your mortgage paid off, kind of what number are you looking at, and kind of see what your net worth is. So this is, I did this probably starting 10 years before I made the move. While everyone else was doing really extravagant things, I stayed true to the course and set my eyes on the goal of moving to the country and homesteading with my 5 children. My second important tip is choosing the perfect location for your family's homestead. So you'll probably have to, start with investigating which state you would like first. So my grandmother always said a little saying that I thought was wonderful. She always said to buy all the land you can because they're not making any more of it. I couldn't agree more. So the very first thing, the pivotal thing you need to do when you're, at this stage, is you need to do a quality of life statement. So you need to write it out and make a plan of what you want your life to look like. So when you're, choosing a location, you need to know things such as, do you want a warm or a cold climate? Like today, I'm out with my dairy cows. It's 102. If you don't like warm weather, then, this is not a good fit for you. So just sit down, decide if you are going to work from home, if you want both parents to stay home, homeschool, but what are your goals? So I recommend writing a quality of life statement. So now you need to look at your budget and in relation to the cost of land. So just say, if you have $20,000, you don't really want to move to a county that you can only buy 1 acre for $20,000. And in Texas, it varies greatly, with each county. So I'm sure it does everywhere. And a big thing are state taxes, because that is huge. Because they're not going away and they're probably going to increase. So you want to make sure you kind of have read and have a handle and understanding of your tax situation to where you're wanting to live. So, very important. The third thing when looking for your location is you want to know the state laws on water. So if you are very interested in rainwater collection, then not all states allow that. So that's like super important. You want to know the homeschool laws. You want to know the raw milk laws. because what if you were wanting to put a micro dairy in and it's against the law in your state? So it is legal in Texas, and I did have a micro dairy before, but it is very strict. For me, like in my quality of life statement, I didn't want to live in a town that had an interstate that went through it, and I wanted to live in a town that didn't really have any industry, so like oil fields or anything. So, you know, that kind of draws you nearer to your goal and what you want. Okay, number 4 in picking a location, your soil fertility. So that is so important. So you need to know what crops you're interested in growing, you know, what it is that if you want year-round gardening, you want to make sure that, you know, like I live in the Texas Hill Country, and a lot of my land, I have a lot of rock. So, and I do have to add a lot of organic matter to my soil. So you really should, you know, you've got to take that into account, what it is you want to grow. And also, what animals do you want to raise? So, you know, that do well in the geographic location that you are, you know, looking into wanting to choose to have the perfect homestead. So I chose a semi-arid climate because I just, you know, I like it. I like the openness and of the horizon. And also, back to the animals, I knew my dream was to have a dairy cow. I'd never really seen one except for on TV, but I knew I wanted one. To me, that was just, you know, everything. She goes and eats grass. She brings you back kefir, ice cream, cheese. Perfect. The 5th thing to take into account when you're choosing a location are any health concerns. So when I lived in Dallas, several of my sons had asthma. So it was important to me to go to a drier climate. I thought that might help. Allergies, so like if you have mountain cedar allergies, you don't want to, like, you know, move to a property that's full of cedar. So those are little things that, you know, you need to think about at this point of your journey. Okay? Hope I'm helping you, because this is like my favorite subject. Okay, on to number 3. Now we're at tip number 3, and this is getting really excited because you're refining your search for the perfect homestead for your family. Tip number 3 is investigate. By now, you probably have your decision made on which state, or you may even have narrowed it down to a few counties within a state. A very good resource for finding out about an area you might be interested in moving to is to read history books about the area. This is actually how I found the county that I live in. Is I was visiting a bed and breakfast in the area, and there was a book out about pioneer life in this area. So that gave me a good insight to the kinds of foods that they could grow in that area, the animals that they raised, and the hardships that they faced. Another thing I did after I had decided and narrowed down the county that I wanted to live in, or I actually narrowed it down to about 2 counties, is subscribe to the local newspaper, because that will give you some insight into daily life around the county. It might even some problems with the county might show up, and also they always have a real estate section, so you can read the real estate section every week and kind of stay on top of the prices and how things are, you know, going in that area real estate wise. Another really important thing that I did is I went, you know, maybe 3 years before I actually moved, I went and met realtors in the area. So you go introduce yourself, you leave your contact information, you kind of tell them what you're looking for, tell them you haven't sold yet, but you are looking. And, you know, it's just a good idea to start a relationship there. And in the end, that is actually how I got my dream homestead. Going to visit the public school is also a very good idea. And if your children will be going to public school, I actually, years before I moved, visited the school. You can also, each state has a rating about, you know, the schools, so look that up. You also visiting the library in that area. That they usually have a lot of historical information in a library. I can't stress enough how important it is to go visit the county tax office. They can give you the tax rates, they can tell you the rules, and because you really want to get your ag exemption. But there's always usually a certain number of acreage that you need to buy to get that, and there's always rules attached. So make sure, and that is a very important thing. And I have a little story. I bought a property recently within the last 2 years, and people lived on it, but I did not realize that it was zoned commercial. So, and it was attached to my acreage, and I've ended up, it's going to take 5 years to get it tax exempt. So 5 years of paying commercial property tax is very expensive. And there was just one little loophole that I missed. I knew that the minimal acreage and I was attached, but I did not fully understand, every detail. So very, very important. I've been showing you our progress with our wheat farm, which is in a different town that I actually live in. And actually I've been implementing some of these strategies myself, of meeting people and finding out more about the area. I own land, but I don't particularly know anyone there. So another good idea is you can visit churches, and that's a good way to get to know people and go to events. Like if there's a large barbecue, or they have a once a year parade, go to it and meet people and find out all you can, because it's best to know before than to move somewhere and just jump in without fully investigating. For those of you planning to grow all of your food when you move to your homestead, it would be a great idea to stop by your county extension agent's office and find out what they recommend that grows well in that area. Also, find out what planting zone that the area is in that you're thinking about moving to. And each zone usually has a planting guide, which I use this almost daily. So this is a great resource, and definitely look that up under planting zones. We're at tip number 4, and it's time to implement your plan. So it's time to possibly sell your home or sell your assets to gather all of your cash, and maybe go into some temporary housing in the town where your job is, so that you're ready to go as soon as you find a job at your new location. So what I did is I sold my home in the city. I moved in with a relative. Then I bought a travel trailer so that I had temporary housing. I did not have any leases, and I was ready to go as soon as there were some financial resources lined up in my new location. But you want to make sure that, I would not quit a job without having a new job that I had started in the next place. Tip number 5 is finding your dream homestead. So by now you should have all of your money in the bank, and you are just waiting now to find the right property. So hopefully you're living in the location that you're wanting to move to. But the first thing you need to do when you start looking at land is you need to know, there are many things that you need to know. You need to make sure that you have a easement to the land, that you have, really good access. You need to check any easements or right-of-ways that might cross the land. You need to know the mineral rights. You need to know the surface rights. You need to know if your neighbors are organic or conventional farmers, because if you want to be organic or put a vineyard in, that might really impact your plan. You want to make sure that if you work from home that you have internet access. You want to see where the cell towers are, if that is going to impact the way you work. But the 2 most important things when you're looking at land is you need to make sure that you have access to water, And that is very important. If there is not a well at the time, you might put in your contract for the land if you decide to buy it, a contingency plan, that you find potable water at that location. Very important. If your options on water are, you might have to have electrical service for electric well, you might have a solar pump, or you might use a windmill. But make sure you have water. We've seen people that don't have water and it's not a good thing. So second, if you do, you want to make sure you have access to electricity. If you need to move electricity, your electrical service a long way, it is very expensive. They usually charge by the foot. So you definitely want to know a lot about that. Those are two very important things. So I would like to share with you, this is what I did 20 years ago. I did leave the city and move to a homestead with my 5 children. And I want to encourage you and inspire you to do this. It is worked out beautifully for me. My last child graduated this month. But it is a lot of work, and you must be very, very persistent and frugal, and things aren't always perfect. So always have a plan A and a plan B, which I always did. I encourage you to do that, and I encourage you to cautiously move forward, but move forward, because this is a wonderful life. We grow almost all of our food, and as a person, I think I have grown. I was a city person. I actually was into fashion, but now I can do anything, and I milk cows, and I am very self-sufficient. I also want you to keep in mind when you're purchasing real estate, and this is what I have always done, is I have always bought desirable real estate. I always knew that if plan A did not work out, that I could sell it and move on to plan B. And so far, it has worked out beautifully, and actually we've probably tripled our money on everything that we bought and sold. But anyway, make sure you understand everything about the location, and you might want to look at resale. Okay, hope that'll help you. Please let us know if we can help you. Please leave us comments, and I plan to do some future videos about my actual story, because it actually is amazing. But from our Texas Hill Country Farmstead to you, you have a blessed day, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.